and global thought leader in the employee recognition industry. Today is a great day. He's going to give us a webinar today, and he is going to talk to us about what great leaders want to know about recognition. Roy is the author of many articles and books, including his latest, Practicing Recognition, the first in his series of practical and strategic books on giving employee recognition the right way. Roy is a regular contributor to Training Magazine and Incentive Magazine, and was chosen as one of the 25 most influential people in the incentive industry. As one of the world's foremost thought leaders in the employee recognition and engagement space, Roy consults and educates leaders and employee workforces and companies and governments and associations around the world. But today, as I said, he's going to share with us a great topic, what great leaders want to know about recognition. And I would also add in there a little subtitle, but may not know who to ask. We are going to solve that problem today. My friend Roy Saunderson is going to lead us through that journey. But first, just a couple housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please submit them using your button on the left side of your screen. I'll collect those as Roy shares with us the webinar. And at the end, I'll come back and perhaps ask him a question or two. So don't be shy. This is your chance to get some really, really good information from one of the world's most leading thought leaders on the recognition and engagement space. So before I hand it over to Roy, just to say we hope you're all staying safe with this pandemic, and that you are treating your employees kindly, that you are just making sure that they have the coping skills they need. If you need any help with that at all, also visit us at rudo.com, and we might be able to help you with that as well. So without further ado, my friend, Roy Saunderson.
Thanks very much, Tommy Lee. It's good to be with everyone again for another webinar. And it was kind of interesting looking at this topic about what great leaders want to know about recognition. And I think it's important to understand that there's a difference between leaders and great leaders. And this is what the great leaders want to know. And I'm going to share some thoughts with you on that. But as you know, I always like to kind of set the stage. And so what do your leaders ask you? And this might be something that you want to put in the chat section to ask your question. Does employee recognition really make a difference? Are these some of the questions you might get asked? And how are our managers doing at recognizing employees? They want to know that. I think many of them do. And obviously, when we do those employee engagement surveys, they're going to ask, why are we at the levels that we are? Why is the recognition-related statements or questions on the survey scoring at the level that they are, whether that be good or bad? And they want you to answer them. They want to know the answer about how recognition can drive performance. These are the things that they are concerned about and want to know how recognition can make a difference. So, what are some of the things you can tell your leaders about recognition? What are the things they need to know that you can tell them? Let's have a look. Well, first off, I think it's very important that these leaders are in the positions they're in because they have the ability, the skills, the knowledge, experience to run a business and make a profit, create wonderful products and services. And so for them, probably point number one is they want to know what the bottom line impact is of recognition. They want to know probably in three areas. They want to know the people impact. They want to know how recognition is keeping the morale level up. How are we helping our employees feel valued for the work they do and the contributions that they're making? Do they feel appreciated? It's interesting, that question gets asked on engagement surveys all the time. Do you feel valued and appreciated for the contributions you make on the job? We ask those feel questions but we're not always giving feelings. And so we need to make sure we are doing that. So your leaders are going to want to know, are our employees more engaged because of the recognition that they're feeling? And they're going to want to know whether retention, whether we have good retention because of how people are feeling recognized and appreciated. And they also want to know the business impact. And this is something we need to keep in mind, because not all levels of growth, progress, and development can be monetized and turned into a dollar figure, but it can certainly make an impact. And so when we give great recognition, when recognition is being given well within an organization, you're going to find that the atmosphere, the camaraderie, the engagement creates a productive workforce. It's a more collaborative kind of working environment. We certainly know that whatever metrics, whatever outputs that you have within your organization, service-wise, deliverables as far as productivity and goods and services, all those things get improved when we're giving recognition. So there is an impact that can be measured. You need to show your leaders what those kind of levels of impact are. What are the results? Do we have a safer workplace, for example, because we're recognizing safe practices going on within the organization? So these are some of the bottom line things. And of course, I think every leader wants to know, is there a return on investment from recognition? And this can be proved. You can actually monetize a lot of measures that you have. So retention, for example, engagement. These things can be monetized, that when certain levels of engagement are achieved, then it produces certain dollar outputs. So your job is to look at things at how recognition might improve retention, for example. And we could look at nursing, and we can say that 20% of their salary is an indication of how much it costs to hire a new employee, train a new employee into the healthcare system. And so if we have a certain percentage of retention, we know that it costs us a certain amount of money. Now we institute a new recognition program, a new recognition practice with our nurses, for example, and we make sure that we're acknowledging them properly, effectively, and we improve the retention. And so we show that the dollar amount that's been saved by recognizing them and the cost of the recognition program, we can now create a cost benefit analysis that shows that we've made a difference. And all you have to do is change that ratio, the cost benefit ratio, times it by 100, and you've got the ROI percentage, for example. So you can really prove these things. Show them that there's a people impact, show them there's a business impact from recognition, and where possible, use the monetization figures that you can to demonstrate that there is a return on investment of recognition. Very, very powerful. All right, so point number 2, what do employees benefit from recognition? Well, I kind of got these labeled under these 3 areas. I think number 1 is they're appropriately appreciated and they get positive feedback. It's interesting when we give feedback and recognition using what I've termed as a 2-part specificity rule, with telling them specifically the actions that they've done and specifically the impact that they've made. Those kind of wording around the feedback and the recognition actually make a cognitive effect. They affect us emotionally from the description of the impact, and they describe us they affect us from the more quantitative side when we actually are specific with the kind of feedback and recognition that we give. I think we need to give more words of appreciation, whether that be face to face, whether that be through text, through email, e-cards, video, however we can do it. The more we can express that, the more people feel appreciated. Employees want to know that we have care and concern for them. And when we demonstrate that, there has been plenty of evidence to show that that care and concern impacts how employees feel loyalty towards the company. These are the things your leaders want to know. And they also need to know about what happens when they are respectfully recognizing employees. Leaders need to know that when they pass by an employee in the hallway, that they need to acknowledge that junior employee just as much as they do a colleague from the C-suite. They need to be respectful. Respect always underlies all great recognition. They need to know that that's important, and that employees, while they don't necessarily associate with senior leaders all the time, they need to know that they can trust them. They need to know that they will be acknowledged by a leader when they have done some great things. So we need to know the preferences of our employees for recognition. You need to know, and your leaders need to know, who likes private recognition and who likes public recognition. They should not expect, as many leaders tend to do, they think that everyone loves the limelight. They think that everybody should come up front on stage to receive perhaps an award that they've merited. So we need to show our leaders the importance of giving meaningful and specific recognition, that it needs to be delivered in the right way. And while we certainly know that when we appreciate employees, we can appreciate the effort, it's also important that, whoops, it's gone too fast here, that we recognize the doing. A lot of employees tell me they know they get rewarded or recognized when a project is completed or a task is done, but they want to know how they're doing along the way. Sometimes those projects and tasks might take months to get completed. We don't want to be recognizing them 2 or 3 months down the road. We need to be recognizing the ongoing work, the doing that's going on. And then with rewards, which kind of get lumped into recognition, I always like to say, we recognize people and we can reward the actual things that are done when results are produced. But I think it's important to combine both. And when you give a reward, you always accompany it with recognition. So you have to make sure, though, that when you're giving rewards, that you follow fair practices and equity. Make sure that the leader knows that rewards are aligned with specific performance criteria. You can't just dish out rewards willy-nilly and just because something happened that was great, but what level of reward, whether that be points, whether that be cash, gift cards, you can create different levels of the value of the reward according to the value of the effort, reward, results that were achieved. So that's why you need to create various criteria, levels, to kind of show managers and leaders what that kind of performance level merits as far as a reward, so that people are more consistent rather than having one manager or leader over here giving a certain value of a reward and another manager giving a far less or far greater reward amount. So choose your reward vehicles carefully. Each industry, I think workplace, is going to find, whether it be points, gift cards, cash, whatever is the right tangible or experiential reward that might be given. You always have to be mindful that rewards are taxable. but you reward results. That's the key you need to remember here. So I think if you show your leaders how appreciation, recognition, and rewards benefit your employees, I think they will better see the big picture of how they can use recognition and rewards within the company. And I think that's very important to show them those benefits. Now, another thing they're going to ask you is they want to know how soon can they get results from your recognition and reward programs. And I want you to know that there are different time levels. So recognition practices are the more face-to-face or personal one-on-one kind of encounters or experiences that you can have. These are the attaboys, attagirls, the pats on the back, the high fives, as well as the kind of e-cards, written cards, personal interactions that you can have. And these kind of practices are cultural practices. They take time to get everybody on board to learn how to give recognition the right way. And you have to make sure that you have a foundation of respect. Respect always comes first to value anything. Then you have to show trust, that people can believe, the expressions of recognition or actions that you might demonstrate are real. And then you have to do those actions consistently. And when you're consistent, then people start to believe and value this recognition that might not have been happening before, but now is meaningful. So with those kind of recognition practices, any kind of cultural practices, it takes at least a year or two for recognition practices to have any meaning and depth to them. It can take 2 or 3 years sometimes. But I think if people can see that you're sincere and this is authentic, this is not a one-off, this is not a flavor of the month that people get concerned about, then I think you start seeing some roots and some benefits in a year or two as a minimum. So you can tell your leader that at least a year or two, this is doing the practices. Now, what about your recognition programs? Well, they are going to take maybe anywhere from 3 months of data to kind of show that you're making a difference. So it's going to take at least 1 quarter, maybe 2, for you to be able to demonstrate to your leader that your recognition programs are making any gains or benefits. Recognition programs produce recognition outputs, whether it be the usage of your program, how many e-cards you send, how many statements are made on a social recognition program, how many nominations were given to an employee. You can pull reports that show who's recognizing who and which employees have been recognized or not recognized to know whether you're making any significant gains with using your programs. So these are the kinds of things that you need to do, but notice you have to spell out to your leader why things take as long as they do. You need enough usage of your programs to produce the data, to produce the reports that can show the benefits and gains that have been made. Now, there is another metric that I think is also very important, and that is the perception that your leader has, or rather that your employees and managers have of your leader. So we need to make sure that they're good at giving recognition. And this is a qualitative measure. Managers and leaders can think, well, I'm great at giving recognition, but then their employees come in and say, not so good, because they may be using the program, but when they are interacting with employees face to face, they're lousy. They may ignore that employee coming down the hallway, not know an employee's name, be all smiles when they're giving an award presentation, but not respect and value that employee off the stage. So again, we can use various pulse surveys and that we have at Rideau, for example, and other survey tools to be able to get at the qualitative measure of recognition. And again, you need at least a quarter of data, maybe two at the most, to really start to see the perceptions that managers have of themselves and employees have of their managers. And now we can combine this data with the program usage, with your other measures, such as an employee engagement surveys, and be able to show the correlation between these kind of recognition measures and your engagement and your performance metrics. Now, when you correlate that, now we can start to produce these kind of great results. But it takes a good quarter or two for the programmatic offerings measures, and it takes a good year or two for the actual practices to kind of correlate with your engagement surveys and prove that recognition is making a difference.